Hi, this is Margaret Bagley, the placement coordinator at Creighton College of Nursing.
I'm Lisa Hart. I'm the onboarding and contract compliance coordinator for the College of Nursing.
And we're here today to explain to you 3 different scenarios regarding eValue when you're trying to submit a placement request. The first thing that we would like to do today is try to walk you through how to look at the active contracts that we have within the College of Nursing. The second goal of this video is to try to show you any of the specifics for the site that you might be looking at regarding just notes that they may have or specifics so that we follow their processes. And lastly, we'd like to walk you through a complete request cycle in how you would properly submit a placement request. We're going to start at the home page of eValue, so you should all have access to this. You get access to eValue shortly after you register and or after you've deposited if you're a new student. With that being said, we'd also like to help you navigate this process by saying when you do enter a placement request, you should have probably reached out to your course faculty prior to getting to the point where you're submitting a request, just for efficiency and just to make sure that you're all on the same page. We want to make sure that the request that you're submitting meets your course objectives. And so there should have been some prior communication with your faculty before submitting a request into the placement portal. With that, we'd like to start now with showing you how to identify the current contracts that we have and walking you through what that process looks like.
Okay, from your home page, to find where we currently have contracts, you would go to the reports function. You would scroll down and look at the site affiliation reports and click the site custom fields link. Here there are several options. You can select from the standard fields, move that over to selected fields because you're going to want to know the site name, the site address. There might be 2 addresses there. The site city and state, as well as the zip code. These would be helpful when you're searching for a site.
The other thing with that is you can save that as a template so that for future you're always able to just know that that's how it's going to generate.
Okay, as you can see, we have several contracts in our database. There is a sort function here, so let's say we want to search for sites in Nebraska. You're going to type in the state field here, NE for Nebraska, and hit filter. These are all of the available sites in Nebraska. If your site is not here, then we probably do not have a contract. Because of the characters allowed in this area, we'd have to shorten some of these. So CHI would be CHI Health or CHI Clinic. Nebraska Medicine is going to be NE Med. Nebraska Methodist would be NE Methodist. So let me just kind of bring one up here. So Nebraska Methodist is going to have this. Okay, you can also search by city. So if you want something in Omaha, Nebraska, you would just collect Omaha up here and then filter. And there's all of these sites we have a contract with in Omaha. All right, now the other part that Margaret wanted to talk about was how to find site compliance, site information. So you would click on one of the sites. So let's say we want to go to Mary Lanning here in Nebraska. You can search by name as well, or you can just scroll through the list and find your site. Let me see if I can find Mary Lanning. Do you see it?
H-I-G.
Oh, that's in Lincoln. So we're going to pick CHI, let's find a CHI one. CHI Health Lakeside. So as you can see, here's the address, the primary contact information. There's a small little map here. There's the linked educators. Of course, there are more than this. We might not have them all linked, however.
And educators, for purposes of eValue, are your preceptors. They are not course faculty.
Okay, as you can see, so we're looking here and we want to know what a graduate student would need to have for his or her compliance requirements. Background check information, BLS information, certifications, site-specific compliance, etc. Some of these may have clickable links that take you to different home pages. Some of them may have clickable links to take you to forms. All of that information should be in here. If you happen to choose a site where this is not filled out or the majority of it says NA because, well, there isn't any information, then that means we have not been able to update that information because we may not have had a student at that site or we just may not have had time. In those particular cases, we will reach out to you directly and let you know what you need for compliance once you have placed the submission. I'm going to clear my filters. And I'm going to take you to another site just so you can kind of see what other sites may show.
Another site in another state, for example.
So let's find the North Dakota one.
So because this information is valuable and we're trying to be as transparent as possible, for each particular site, and again, Lisa and I are a two-man band, so if it's not completely listed for that particular site, as she mentioned, it might be that we just have not had a student there recently, and or we have 1,500 contracts, we just haven't had a chance to get that information uploaded. But within this, it will specifically address if portal systems are needed. It will talk about State Board of Nursing requirements and if a formal application is needed. So all of those things will be identified within these specific note fields under each site.
For example, on this particular site in North Dakota, this person would need to have, of course, a North Dakota nursing license. If you do not have a North Dakota license or are licensed in a compact state, do not submit a request until you have a license in that particular state or a compact state. For example, Minnesota is not a part of the licensure compact, so you would have to have a separate Minnesota license. If you do not have a Minnesota license, you have to have one prior to submission of a request.
And I just want to just try to clarify that a bit more. Even if you submitted a request to us and we got all of the information to the site, Lisa cannot verify compliance and cannot fulfill what the obligations are for compliance requirements without submitting your proof of licensure. So there is absolutely no point to submit a request to us and I'll have us go through the process of getting it approved for you if you're not licensed to practice in that state. So again, make sure that you're licensed prior to submitting a request into the portal, into the eValue portal for us, because we spend an enormous amount of time trying to get these requests moved to get them completed and to get them approved for you. And when we don't have the required documentation to provide to the sites, it cannot be approved.
If you are not sure where you are licensed, you can always click here and it will take you to the nurses licensure compact site, and you can look to see which states are compact license states or which sites are single states and which states you cannot proceed with. Okay, go back to here. Some states require Board of Nursing requirements, so we list that information in the State Board of Nursing instructions. This is the information you will need to provide to Margaret, the preceptorship coordinator, and you can submit that information to her via email. Compliance requirements, if there are any compliance requirements or forms, I will either email them to you directly or you will pull them from this page. If there's nothing linked to this page, then there might be some portal information that you will have to complete. If you have any questions regarding this, you can give us an email.
Before you close out. Lastly, in the note-specific portion of each of the sites is probably one of the most important parts for you to look at. It will give specific instructions. For example, in this case, all placements must go through myself as the placement coordinator, and I have to enter into their particular placement portal systems or whatever. They also talk about in this area if there are site-specific deadlines, those override our College of Nursing deadlines, of course. And if it requires you to be an employee prior to submitting or any other, what we would consider very important notes that are coming as policies, procedures, mandates from the facility, it will be directed in this notes section.
Okay. Now to submitting a practicum clinical placement request. You will click on schedules and you'll go to manage schedule requests. You would submit a scheduled request after you have talked to your faculty and have received approval from them. You need to make sure that it meets up with your course objectives and requirements. Here, you would click course number and make sure you submit under the correct course that you are in. If you do not do that, then it will never get messaged to your course leader for approval. So please make sure you submit for the correct course. The time frame here, this is very important. If you are submitting a fall placement, the first placement you submit will be placement number 1 and then so on from there. If you have a second submission, then you will submit for placement number 2 and so on. Something to note here when we're picking a site, the site that you choose can only be with one preceptor. So for each preceptor at that site, you will select one placement. For example, if you are going to CHI here in Omaha and you have a second preceptor, or actually 2 preceptors, then you will select one here and then you'll pick your educator and then submit. If you have a second educator, you will do all of that again and select the new educator and continue to do that until you've met all of your educators.
So essentially, to just kind of clarify, each line item is one site, one preceptor. Because of the fact that you might have multiple preceptors, or at least 2 preceptors at a site identified, one preceptor might be approved by the site and one might not. We want to be able to make sure that we are communicating correctly to you which preceptors have been approved and which ones have not. So remember, each line item is one facility with one unique preceptor.
When submitting these requests, you will also have to submit some documents. To submit the documents, you'll click on the request documents and upload from there. Here is where you will upload your graduate practicum site request and your graduate practicum preceptor request, as well as the license information on that preceptor. So you should have 3 documents associated for each preceptor. If you do not have a preceptor at the time of submission, which often happens because the site will choose the preceptor for you, then you would pick waiting for preceptor. And then you would make a note, the site identifies preceptor. I can't see that.
EPT, there you go.
And then you can submit. So then your educator down here would show waiting for preceptor identification. If you are looking for a site in here and we do not have a contract with that particular site, so we need to initiate one, you would pick no contract. And then type in the site information here, as well as upload your graduate practicum site request forms. And then you would submit.
Just as a clarification on this as well, if you're looking at a site and you think, oh, we have several contracts with CHI, but it's not specific to the location where you will physically be working or conducting your hours, you will put it in as a number one, no contract. Each specific site is specific to a physical address of that location. It may be that we have the contract and we just need to link an additional site, and we will do that on our back end, but we will verify each actual physical address to make sure it is covered under our umbrella contract, and or if necessary, as Lisa said, we will initiate a brand new contract if we find out that it isn't.
If you are unsure of the name, then you can always click the looking glass here to see what the address actually is. If you ever have to edit your request, you can come over here and click the edit schedule request. It will bring it back up here, and then you can make your edits here. Anytime you make an edit or touch your placement, please make a comment so we know that what you have done to this, if there was any changes. And then we can make sure that the faculty sees that, and then we see that and make the adjustments necessary for your placement. Something to think about here, or something to know here, the status here, if it says pending approval, it is because your faculty person has not approved that placement. Actually, you'll see comments here.
And you'll see comments. So just to give you a little preview of what the statuses look like and how a progression will go, would be you would submit a placement request, and automatically it would come up as a pending approval. Before it is forwarded on to Lisa and I for processing, your faculty will make two specific comments in there, which then routes it to Lisa and I. It will say site approved, and it will also say preceptor authorized. Without those two comments, Lisa and I cannot process your request. So the first line of the beauty of this eValue is that it's transparent for everybody. It's transparent. You're putting in the request as a student. The faculty can see exactly what you've put in, and Lisa and I can see what you've done. All the comments are date ordered and they're sequential. So again, if you notice that your request does not have authorization by your faculty, your first step is not to reach out to Lisa and I, because we don't process that. The first step would be to reach out to your faculty member and make sure that they have seen that the request is in. Again, sometimes it's just human error in that you submitted it under a wrong course number. If that's the case, again, attention to detail is necessary, because a faculty is looking under their specific course number. If you chose a wrong section of a course, if you put it under a wrong course number, it is not being routed to them, and therefore they are not seeing the request. So again, if you have a request in and it is under pending approval and there's not a note in the comment that your faculty has authorized the site and or the preceptor, Lisa and I are not able to process that request. That would be your first line. Once we receive the notification that your faculty has authorized both your site and or your preceptor, Lisa and I are then able to start processing that request. That's where we look at compliance requirements, the State Board of Nursing requirements, if there is a portal that needs to be submitted to that is site or state specific, those kinds of things. Again, when Lisa and I when we are actively processing your request, there will be comments in the comment section, as well as the status will change to a secondary status, which is called wait list. Your request will remain in waitlist status until a third request comes up, and that is when Lisa has authorized it. Lisa is the only person that is able to fully give you approval to begin clinical hours at your site. And she has a very specific email that she sends out, which is on the placement request, and it will say, here's an example, this email is to serve as your confirmation that you've been approved to begin clinicals at whatever the site is, with whatever the name of the preceptor is. If you have additional questions, please contact your course faculty. If you have not seen that approval email, and if your specific status of your request is not noted as upcoming, you are not authorized to go to your clinical, and you cannot begin hours. Some faculty in some courses require that you submit that email notification as the first assignment in your course, just so that everybody is on the same page and they know that you actually have received the proper approvals and that you are cleared to begin clinical. It's not required for all courses, but some faculty in some courses require you to submit that email. If so, you'll receive an email notification and you can just upload from Lisa. The last two statuses that I want to address are rejected and deleted. If your status comes up as rejected, there is a reason for that, and again, it'll be noted in the comment section. Largely, it might be because of a facility either not initiating a contract or not willing to initiate it. It might be because they are not able to accommodate the request because the facility is oversaturated with other students. A myriad of reasons, but again, those would be detailed in the comments of that particular request. The final status is deleted, and that would be one that you would initiate as a student. You might have submitted something, but inadvertently submitted the wrong semester, the wrong site, you picked the wrong course number, you decided that after another facility got back to you that the initial request was not valid anymore, you no longer needed it. You would actually delete your own request, and if that were the case, again, please make sure that you put a comment in there so that we know why it was deleted. So those are the 5 statuses and what they mean. So again, it initially is submitted under pending approval. The second request status would be waitlist, and that is when Lisa and I are actively working on it. The third status is upcoming, and that means that you are approved and that you are officially able to start. And the last 2 statuses are rejected and deleted, and those would be regarding submissions that are no longer valid. So I hope that clarifies.